Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective, and today we have a Dell Latitude E5440. And this was essentially a direct competitor to the Lenovo ThinkPad T series of the Haswell era. So this did have 4th generation Intel CPUs, and I had the opportunity to take a look at it, and I thought it would make a great video. So let's dive right in. In terms of the specifications of this model, well, with Dell, it is always a bit difficult because so many configurations vary from region to region, more so than I think any other manufacturer. So this is what I know mostly for sure. So it came out in the year 2013, made about until 2014. It had essentially 2 display options, either a 1366 by 768 panel or a 1600 by 900 panel, and that is 14 inches diagonal. They all came with microphones built into the top as well as web cameras. And as you can see, they can lie pretty flat. So they were definitely paying attention to what other manufacturers were doing in their business class of laptops. In terms of CPU configurations, as I mentioned, it's 4th gen Intel. So we do start at the bottom with an i3-410U. We then have a i5-4300U and then an i7-4600U. Now, there were a variety of other configurations, and I'm going to put them up on the screen for you to read, that apparently these units came in, but from what I can tell, it did vary from region to region where these CPUs were sold. And in terms of GPU options for dedicated GPUs, you essentially had 2 GeForce options. One was an N14M GE and the other was a GT720M. And one thing that is worth noting is that M-SATA was not available with the express card and the dedicated GPU on the inside, so there is a bit of minutia there. If you're looking for very specific internals, you need to be mindful of which ones come with the dedicated GPU, which ones don't. The machine would max out at 16 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM at 1600 megahertz. And we had 3 battery options. We had a 4-cell 49 watt hour, a 6-cell 65 watt hour, and then this beefy fellow, which is the 9-cell 97 watt hour. Moving right along to ports, we do have on the left-hand side the power plug, a physical Wi-Fi kill switch, your fan exhaust, HDMI, USB 3.0, even though it's colored black, the express card reader, and the SD card slot. Now along the back, we do have a USB 2.0 port, I believe, on the right-hand side of the hinge there. Or pardon me, I guess that'd be on the left-hand side. And then we have our Ethernet port. So it is interesting that they would essentially build ports into the hinges on these models. That's a very Dell thing to do. Take it what you will. We do have Kensington lock slot here, VGA, USB 3.0, a headphone microphone combo jack, and then your optical drive. It is worth noting that we have a series of indicator lights along the front of the laptop that indicate Wi-Fi, power, charge, and disk activity, and that is about it. One thing I do want to point out is that this is a straight up French keyboard, because that's not how you say escape in English, and that is not how you say enter in English either. So if you keep mashing this key expecting to be served a small dish of food, you will be disappointed. That is indeed enter. Speaking of which, the keyboard is a very fascinating design because it definitely has the raised keys that you would expect from a classic keyboard, but then they have the ridges that extend out to the point where they're touching, so it kind of ends up being chiclet, but not. I'm not 100% sure why they chose to do that, maybe to keep dust, grime, and gunk out of the keyboard. I definitely don't like this keyboard as much. I don't appreciate the feedback. The distinguishing feeling between the keys just isn't for me. But there you have it. Some models were equipped with a fingerprint reader in the bottom right-hand corner. If you're looking for it, it can be found there. And then you have a trackpad with some pretty unremarkable buttons and no trackpad click, of course. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take this thing apart and so you can see what is serviceable on the inside. To do that, we will need to actuate both of the battery catches, which is located right by the docking port, which I did not mention during our port tour, but it is there. So if you do want a docking station, this model is capable of using one. Once we have the battery removed, we can then safely spin out all of the screws. So we'll continue spinning out the main screws, which are not captive on this model, unfortunately. So just make sure you have a screw tray or a piece of paper or something nearby to help you collect those. So we have 3 here, and then we have 2 located on either side of the dock connector, which are in those recessed holes, which is actually where pins, or kind of these posts, I should say, fit for the dock connector. We'll just use our magnet to pull those out. And that should be it for the screws. So let's just gently grab a panel and remove. That's pretty darn easy. We'll start at the bottom and work our way up. We do have 2 front downward-ish firing speakers located here, and we do have 2 RAM slots located here. And as I mentioned earlier, you can have 2 sticks of 8 for a total of 16. This is a mechanical hard drive, of course, and it is missing its caddy. However, a little piece of Dell colored foam will keep that in place, no problem. We do have our CMOS battery over here, which is easily unpluggable and serviceable. Moving right along, we have our Wi-Fi card hanging out here, and we do have our M-SATA slot, and it says refer to the manual if you don't know what you're doing over there. Now, to remove the optical bay, we do have our screw here, which is located very closely to the screw that I thought was related to it. Why they didn't just make that one post, I'm not entirely sure, but there we have it. So that ends up being the majority of these serviceable components. If you want to know more information, I will leave a link, hopefully, for the maintenance manual that covers further disassembly of this machine in the description down below if you do need to do a deeper dive, if you need to service other components. So with that being said, let's go ahead and reassemble this and turn it on and see how it performs. All right, now that we have it back together, let's go ahead and turn it on and see what we get in terms of boot time. It is worth mentioning, of course, that we do have a mechanical hard drive in this model, so we aren't going to get the blistering speeds that we could get with a solid-state drive. All right, and there we have it. We are in. So once again, this panel is 1366 by 768, and it is perfectly serviceable. You can't really see pixels on it. The brightness is pretty good, and navigating around this computer is pretty effortless with the touchpad. The buttons are a bit spongy for my taste, but all in all, quite good. So this is actually a decent little setup. We have the i5-4200U in here with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and that would be really good. The only update that I would do to this if I were buying it would be swapping out that mechanical hard drive for an SSD, and then you're pretty much laughing all the way you need to go. The 97 watt hour battery is giving 4.5 hours on better performance, and we can probably get that to increase, yes, quite nicely, at least idling like this, up to potentially 10 hours. So that battery's got to be in pretty good health to give us that sort of time. And it is worth pointing out that the 4th gen Intel CPUs tend to be pretty battery sippy for their age. They certainly do better than, say, the 2nd or 3rd gen Intels, which were a little bit more power demanding, but that also has to do with this being a U-series CPU. At any rate, ladies and gentlemen, these are pretty easy to come by, and they're not bad alternatives if you're not fans of ThinkPads or they're just not available in your area. The Latitude E5440 isn't exactly a terrible choice. There are a lot of good features, the build quality is quite good, they will not break the bank. So if you are looking for something that will do what you need it to do, and has some pretty significant battery options available if you do need to go remote, this isn't a bad choice. At any rate, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. If you do have questions, please do put them in the comment section down below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And as always, I'll encourage you to do the big 4. Please like the video, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so the next time I feature a Dell or other business class laptop, you'll be the first to know about it. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.